The end of second year arc give us a surprising development that is actually really common, but still a surprise because it took the whole 2 years to finally happen, which is Horikita having a crush on Ayanokoji. Romantically speaking, love can come no matter place and time, but if we are talking about current story development, it's actually weird to make Horikita fall in love with Ayanokoji. It's not because they are not suited for each other, but it just doesn't match their current condition. Horikita's position as the class leader and also the first heroine introduced put her in a very special spotlight, and it wouldn't be weird if they actually ended up together. However, she fell in love right before Ayanokoji transferred classes, so they will always be enemies until they graduate. We have seen Sakayanagi and Ichinose fall in love even though they are enemies, and I don't think repeating the similar plot will be good for the series. In the first place, we have seen a lot of girls fall in love with Ayanokoji, and I am sure a lot of people would agree that we don't need another contender in that genre. Even without Horikita in the addition, the romance plot in this series rarely ever means anything except for temporary fan service that will soon be forgotten. However, the word had been written, and whether you like it or not, Horikita will keep getting a question whether she likes Ayanokoji or not. With Ichinose lurking in the dark, and Ayanokoji suddenly falling in love with Hiyori, it's hard to see how Horikita will take place between them, but before we are thinking about the future, let's take a step back and see why Horikita really needs to fall in love with Ayanokoji. If I need to be honest, Horikita shares a lot of similarity with Yukinoshita from the Origaru series. Both of them had unhealthy obsessions toward their older sibling, but when the protagonist came to their life, their obsession changed course toward the MC. The entire story of Horikita from the first year arc was about how she sought recognition from her brother, but when Manabu graduated, Horikita decided to seek recognition from Ayanokoji. While Yukinoshita finally realizes that she has become too dependent on the MC and choose to fight by herself, Horikita never actually moved from her story to get recognition from Ayanokoji. She stated it in volume 12.5, where she hoped that Ayanokoji would stay by her side and give her his approval as a companion and classmate. That's why when Ayanokoji transferred class, she became really depressed, because one of her goals suddenly became impossible to achieve. At this point, Horikita considers Ayanokoji as the replacement of her brother, and since she got blinded by her adoration, it could explain why Horikita never fell in love before. Just like Sakayanagi, who cannot fall in love with someone lower than her, Horikita could only look up to someone who is on the same level as her brother, and since it's morally wrong for her to fall in love with Manabu, Ayanokoji, who receives his acknowledgement, becomes the only possible candidate. It makes sense why Horikita would eventually fall in love with Ayanokoji, but even if love could come whenever it wants, it's still a bit weird that Horikita need a whole 2 years to finally grow a romantic feeling. The timing of Horikita's romantic story couldn't be any worse because she already fell behind compared to Ichinose or Hiyori, and in the first volume of the third year, she started building a warm relationship with Ayanokoji's ex-girlfriend. Horikita's feeling is sandwiched between a lot of events, and that made it too complicated even to just simply exist. Just with Horikita's position as a class leader, it's almost impossible for them to end up together, but even before we are talking about class matter, the story is currently focused on Ayanokoji and Hiyori, with Ichinose smiling in the background. Since Ayanokoji having a feeling is a rare phenomenon that probably wouldn't appear again, it's hard to think Ayanokoji could have a change of heart in just a single year. With that in mind, we should not expect that Horikita will going on a date with Ayanokoji, but since love is not always equal dating, perhaps this plot revolving Horikita has an even greater meaning behind it. From my perspective, Horikita falling in love with Ayanokoji is needed to give Horikita some sort of internal conflict over whether she should hate Ayanokoji or not. If executed properly, it can become a boost of motivation that would later improve her performance, but sadly Ichinose is the only successful case of this scenario. Repeating what Ichinose had gone through doesn't sound like a good story choice, so I guess Horikita's development will be a classic story where she tried to save someone she loved. This kind of scenario makes more sense because lately Horikita had been involved with Ayanokoji more than anyone. She met his father, and she also had been teased to learn about Ayanokoji's past when she accidentally met Ishigami. It's highly possible for Horikita to be involved with Ayanokoji even in the future, so building her feelings early in the third year could be a long-term investment for the sequel. Knowing Horikita, she will most likely prioritize her class over Ayanokoji. There were some exceptions such as Kushida's incident, but it's safe to assume she already considered Ayanokoji as her enemy, so her feeling is actually unnecessary for the story's progress. However, even if she wanted to put her feelings to rest, the recent development from Volume 3 of the third-year arc proves that Kinugasa has no intention to put this plot to rest. In the middle of the survival game, Kei asked Horikita whether she actually liked Ayanokoji or not. Kei literally pushed her to answer, and even when Horikita denied it, Kei didn't seem satisfied with her answer. This might be an insignificant fan service, but it shows us that Kei is still not moving on from Ayanokoji, and since she said it is an important question for her, we should expect that she will keep bringing it up in future volumes. If this conflict between them keeps happening again and again, Horikita will be forced to face her feelings, but even if she confesses and gets rejected, it's hard to think anything will change in the grand plot, which is why I think this plot is just a filler, or at least just a little drama to spice things up between Kei and Horikita. It's not impossible for Ayanokoji to forget Hiyori and make a move on Horikita, but it really depends on how Ayanokoji actually saw Horikita. For Ayanokoji, Horikita is mostly his experiment to test on her potential. They did have a lot of memorable moments together, but readers will hardly call it a friendship, let alone romantic. Some people might think the scene where Ayanokoji is smiling in front of Horikita actually means something, but since it is never brought up again, and Hiyori manages to outclass it by making Ayanokoji fall in love with her, I don't think that scene holds that much importance. Ayanokoji probably smiled because Horikita actually showed some progress that made Ayanokoji realize it was worth spending his time with her, so it's probably more like a parent feeling happy seeing their children learn to walk. Even if it's ended up with something more romantic, what Ayanokoji will do is most likely similar to Hiyori, which is experimenting and pushing the boundary to trigger his feeling. There is a chance Ayanokoji would make a romantic move toward Horikita just to trigger Ichinose, or he could even give Horikita hope just to destroy her like what he did with Ichinose. It will all depend on whether Horikita will manage to meet expectations or not, or whether Horikita will be stupid enough to fall for that trick. It might not be what the reader is hoping for, but we shouldn't expect a pure romantic story when it involves Ayanokoji. Considering how Ayanokoji leaves Horikita and Horikita starts to rely more on her classmates, I still lean more on the possibility of Horikita's feelings being just a motivation for her to step up her games. There is only 1 year left in their high school time, so there should be no time to enjoy a sweet warm feeling such as love. The best we could hope for is a confession on their graduation day, but once again, we should lower our expectations for that kind of happy ending. With how the plot revolves around Horikita and the possibility of them meeting again outside the school, it's more plausible that their relationship will eventually develop further after they graduate. If we get a political arc after graduation, Ichinose and Hiyori probably wouldn't be there, so at least the path would be easier if Horikita really wanted to try. Needless to say, no one knows what will happen in the future. If everything ended up good, there is a high chance they could tie the knot when they are adults, but if the classroom elite have a bad ending where Ayanokoji lose his life, that would end the waifu war with a very tragic ending. I don't think there is anyone hoping for that ending, but sometimes even the most popular series could have the most terrible closure.